Welcome to the Altogether Show with Eric Satz. On this show, you'll hear Eric's unfiltered interviews with interesting and untraditional entrepreneurs who ignored boundaries, followed their instincts and own paths, and are now empowering others to do the same. Subscribe to the show and learn more by visiting altogether.show. And now your host, Eric Satz.
This episode's guest is Nikhil Basu Trivedi. He was the youngest partner and managing director at Shasta Ventures, where he was responsible for investments in Class Dojo, Farmer's Dog, Hinge, Imperfect Foods, Literati, Pill Club, and many more. He recently left Shasta to focus on his next big thing. Everyone's looking forward to what MBT will do next. I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I enjoyed recording it.
This episode of the Altogether Show is brought to you by Alto IRA. Alto is a digital, self-directed IRA company modernizing IRA investing. They make it easy and cost-effective for individual investors to access their retirement savings and invest in alternative assets. To learn more, visit altoira.com.
Nikhil Basu Trivedi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Just to kind of set the stage for the audience, you grew up in the UK and then California, going to high school in Atherton. You make your way to Princeton. We're going to talk about that a little bit because the number of activities for you at Princeton was outstanding. And you end up, a partner at Shasta Ventures, obviously in the Bay Area. And this is, you're an investor and board member of a number of private companies, to say the least, which is very interesting, kind of just even at the surface level of things from a professional perspective. But if someone were to say to you, Nikhil, tell me who you are, what you're about, describe yourself, what do you say?
I think the first thing I say is, I grew up in the UK, moved to the Bay Area when I was a teenager, but have spent a ton of time in India as well. And so have been shaped by these three countries. And the reason I say that up front is everyone immediately goes to my accent and tries to figure out exactly where it's from. And so I feel like I need to clarify that, hey, I grew up in these three different places, and that's why I sound a little bit different. And then the other things I say are I've had 3 jobs. I was on the founding team of a company during college called Artsy, which is an online marketplace for original art. Then I was at Insight Partners in New York, where I learned the ropes of investing. And then I was at Shasta for the last almost 8 years as an early stage venture investor. And then beyond that, I'm obsessed by a number of sports. I love getting outdoors. Went for a great run this morning. Thankfully, the air is now clean and clear in San Francisco. I've been married for the last year and a half, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And family's a huge part of who I am. And I'm an optimist, and I love to write and to work with founders, and I get up every day excited to sort of do this job of investing. So that's the quick story on me.
I love that you're an optimist, and I think I've mentioned this before on podcasts that I've been on. My favorite poem is "Somebody Said It Couldn't Be Done." And of course it goes, somebody said it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. When did you realize you were an optimist?
I was lucky to have a great childhood and have parents who love me and who've done so much for me. And so, But I had ups and downs as a teenager. So I think after I really found my footing as a high schooler, having adjusted to life in the Bay Area, maybe around 15, 16, 17, I kind of felt like I was optimistic about the state of the world, and but that also might be due to that. That's sort of when I properly understood my own consciousness in that phase. So, I think it was hard for me to be self-reflective at probably age 11 about, am I an optimist or not?
That's an interesting point, because you actually moved from the UK to the Bay Area when you're 13, right? That seems like a tough age to make that kind of move. Were those a couple tough years from 13 to 15? And if so, how so?
Yeah, it was actually a very difficult period to move. I went to 8th grade in the Bay Area with a bunch of kids who'd been to school together for a really long time, and they all were very good friends. And so I found it very difficult to sort of break into any social circles and to make any friends in that first year in the US. And I also really missed my life in England. I missed my friends there, but I also missed cultural things. I played cricket growing up, and no one knows anything about cricket in the US. I'm a huge fan of Manchester United and the real football, and no one really cared about that here. And so I really, I'd never been to school with girls before. I was in an all boys school in England, and I'd worn the same uniform every day with a tie. So there were like a ton of micro adjustments that I had to make to come to the US. And I didn't really enjoy those first couple of years. And then at some point the switch flipped during high school, where I realized, wow, I live in this incredible part of the world. There's all this stuff happening to do with technology and Silicon Valley that I'm getting to be around. I learned how to code in high school as well. I took CS with one of the greatest educators I've ever had, my computer science teacher, Mr. Thibodeau at Menlo. And that's when I really started to I think, find my footing, as I said before. And so it's interesting because that, as I just described it, so many of those foundations are related to what I do today.
So I want to pick up on that, but I want to come back to it because I actually want to go back to the beginning. You're born in Oxford, is that right, or is that?
Yeah.
You're born in Oxford.
Yes.
Right. How many siblings do you have?
One sister.
One sister. How much older are you?
I'm 5.5 years older.
5.5 years older. Okay. Are you all close? Is she in the Bay Area too?
Yeah, she's here as well, and we're close. We were just texting about a bunch of stuff last night.
What does she call you?
She calls me Nikhil.
Not MBT?
No, the NBT thing it came up somewhere, I think during high school. People started to call me that.
So what do your parents do? Or what did they do?
Yeah, my mom is a professor. So she's been an academic for her career, and actually she teaches entrepreneurship. And she's at San Jose State University in the Bay Area. And my dad has been a technology exec and operator for a while now. So he used to be at Sun Microsystems, and he's now at NVIDIA. He's been at NVIDIA for over a decade.
Wow. Good for him.
Yeah.
Timely.
He's had a great run there.
It runs in the family. That's it. That's excellent. So, who was the driver of the move to San Francisco? Was it your mom or your dad?
It was initially my dad, and so he actually moved to the Bay Area a year before the rest of us came and joined him. And again, that was in 2002.
Okay. And so you were about to say that before I cut you off and took us back to the beginning, you were about to say that this kind of formative stage, which is how I think about high school anyway, really set the foundation for what you're doing today. Can you maybe connect the dots a little more for us?
Growing up in England, I hadn't been exposed to, entrepreneurship and technology really in any way compared to what happened to me in high school. And so, I went to Menlo School in Atherton. I was surrounded by all these kids of entrepreneurs and venture capitalists and technology execs. I learned how to code, and so what that led to was really from day one, I knew I wanted to work. From day one in college, I knew I wanted to work on startups. And so I worked on a few different projects during high school, but my sort of entrepreneurial activity began in college. And there's no way that would have happened had it not been for those formative years in high school in the middle of Silicon Valley.
So this is what I both love and admire about you. So you go to Princeton, you're talking about entrepreneurship and finance, and yet there's a molecular biology major thrown in there. Is that right?
That is right. I did end up concentrating in molecular biology. That's what my degree is in. I really actually enjoyed studying that. Happy to go more into it if you wish.
I do want to go into it, because what I think a lot of, and I'm speaking now as the parent of a 21 and 19-year-olds, right, who have no idea what they're going to do. And, I think our advice, our being mine and Kate, my wife, is to follow what you love, follow what you're interested in. I mean, college is a very unique time to sort of learn and explore, right? But I think society now is set up in such a way that you're kind of worried about what's next, right? What am I doing today to set me up for the next thing? And, as I've met over way too many years, venture capitalists, whether West Coast or East Coast, it's really interesting that I find that some of the most successful were not finance majors. They were not economics majors. They were, they had, for lack of a better term here, more of a liberal arts approach to their studies and learning. And I think there's something in that thinking and approach which over time helps them distinguish themselves. And so I'd love for you to dig into the molecular biology side of college.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing I'll say is I feel very grateful looking back that my parents never said, hey, this is what you should do. And they really let me make my own decisions. I mean, when it came to deciding where to go to college, deciding what to major in, all these things, where to live after graduation, what to do. I mean, they just let me make the decisions that I wanted to make. And I feel very thankful for that in hindsight. So when I went to Princeton, I did say on my application, I think I want to study molecular biology. So I had a hypothesis going in. And the reason for that was I liked the sciences a ton in high school. I also felt like molecular biology is one of those things that if I didn't learn it in college, then I may not get to learn it in the real world. I knew I had this entrepreneurial sort of passion going into college. And so I actually thought maybe that entrepreneurial passion will be sort of translated into me doing something in the life sciences and biotech, and I should just learn about this stuff because probably during my lifetime there's going to be a ton of innovation in molecular biology. So that was really the thesis behind studying it, and I ended up writing my senior thesis about the $1,000 genome and the path towards personalized medicine. And I do think a lot of what I learned is going to be really helpful for me in the years ahead. And it's already led to some investments in the sort of intersection between biology, healthcare, and computing. But I took a bunch of classes in economics, a bunch of classes in CS, a bunch of stuff in across departments. And I would say the thing that I ended up spending the most time on in college was actually all the entrepreneurship stuff. I restarted the entrepreneurship club at Princeton. I worked on a bunch of startup ideas, including Artsy, as I referenced before. And so those became my really formative extracurricular activities, alongside molecular bio as my major. And so hopefully that helps form a bigger picture around what happened to me during school.
So I want to put the study of molecular biology under the microscope in a second, pun fully intended. But, you know, with all the talk about, well, first of all, for obvious reasons, virtual classrooms have been pushed on the world all of a sudden. I think there's a difference between going to college and taking college courses. And, you know, I think because, in part, at least because of the income gap, economic gap that exists in this country, there is a considerable amount and justified amount of discussion around online learning and more cost-effective solutions. But I do think it, to a certain extent, misses the point of college, which is everything you do outside of the classroom, which is kind of what you were just talking about. Did you have to be a self-starter to get involved the way you did?
I think to a certain extent, yes. But of course, I went to a school where that was encouraged, and there were tons of opportunities to be a self-starter. So, you know, I don't think this was just all about my own taking initiative. But you're totally right, Eric. I mean, one of the things that I really worry about right now is that, you know, kids in school, and I think I use that term loosely because I think it applies to K through 12 as well as college. The fact that they're not getting to engage with one another in person because of distance learning, and obviously that's because of this pandemic, is such a shame. I mean, I really worry about the ripple effects of this current era, because so much of my journey has been a sequence of sort of fortunate things that happened in person with people. And it's so hard to replicate that virtually.
I could not agree more. So if we roll back the tape just a couple minutes and come back to the silly microscope pun, and was there something in the study of molecular biology that you feel prepared you for startup company analysis and assessment?
I think the main thing it ingrained in me is it was hard. I mean, I actually found it challenging. I remember being really challenged by organic chemistry, for instance. And during I think the second semester of Orgo, I'm pretty sure I thought, oh man, this might not all be worth it. Like, why am I doing it? But I should do CS, I should do econ, whatever. So probably more than anything, you know, taught me, yes, some layers of first principles thinking, you know, but more than that, just kind of having a growth mindset and being challenged and like getting those B's in Orgo, leading to me feel like, wow, you know, I need to really do the work to figure some of this stuff out. And that's probably more that kind of thing is probably mostly what I learned from studying more bio. The other thing is I got to, my senior thesis advisor was Princeton University's president, a woman named Shirley Tilgman. And so coming back to what I said earlier about so much of my college life was about people, getting to work with Shirley President Tillman. I think I can now call her Shirley, though I still sort of President Tillman. That was incredible because I literally was going into the president of the university's office every couple of weeks. She was, giving me comments on the draft of my thesis, but I was getting to learn other things from her, not just molecular biology. I was getting to understand more about leadership from just watching her in those meetings and seeing how she operated. And she was, for instance, a board member at Google during that time as well. And so while she didn't share all this stuff with me, of course, I did get to learn just from observing her. And so that was a side benefit of having studied more bio that I didn't expect when I declared the major.
Yeah. So, I sort of chalk that up as one of those plays you can never draw up on the chalkboard. You kind of got to be there to be lucky enough to have it unfold and to take advantage of. That's something that's not going to happen through distance learning or any other sort of virtual class. And it's wonderful when it does, right? So you at what point you've invested in a hell of a lot of CPG related businesses. That feels like very far afield from bioscience. How does that progression evolve?
Yeah, I mean, my tastes, my interests as an investor have really changed over time. When I started at Shasta, from day one, I was more focused on consumer businesses than enterprise businesses, and I think my quote unquote CPG investments, I actually think of more as consumer subscription investments than I do CPG investments. When you look at the Farmer's Dog, which is this pet food subscription service, Literati, which is a book club subscription service, Pill Club, which is a women's health brand and subscription service, and Imperfect Foods, which is a grocery delivery subscription service. The common theme is actually subscription versus CPG. They all have slightly different models, and some of them produce their own product, but actually a bunch of them don't. And so I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is, figuring out what the underlying piece of a business is, because it actually might be different than what it looks like on the surface. And those set of investments are more about my obsession with the subscription business model than they are about my obsession with CPG.
So is it okay if you walk us through maybe you're thinking for Literati or the Farmer's Dog, which I love, by the way, and how you get to yes on these investments?
Yeah, let's pick Literati.
Okay.
And so if you check out literati.com, this is a book club service. It started off with a service for kids to get books delivered every month or every quarter or every other month. And if you sign up as a parent, you get this box for your kids. You can choose which books you want to keep, and you can ship back any books that you don't want. So the model is a little bit like Stitch Fix for books. And what I got excited about, and we at Shasta ended up leading the Series A, and I joined the board. The first thing I got excited about was a bunch of early signs of product market fit. The company already had 10,000 plus subscribers for this service. It was at millions in recurring revenue already, with good margins, good retention, good LTV to CAC. So it checked a number of boxes around signs of product market fit. The second thing I got excited about was the potential for what this could become, and the potential for Literati's customers to have a decades-long relationship with Literati. And that's because, Jess, the founder, and the team have this vision of expanding beyond kids' books to book clubs for adults, and then to more over time. And so I got excited about that. And the final piece, which is related to that, is I just got blown away and excited by the founder, Jess. I think she is an incredible force of nature. She was at Google as an APM in one of the early APM batches. She then made a crazy life decision to leave Google and to write a book. And actually, I think Eric Schmidt and Jonathan Rosenberg in their book talk about how that was one of the worst career decisions they'd seen anyone make, which is to leave Google to become an author. And she just has this insane passion to change the book industry, and it's been there for such a long time. And you can just tell when you meet her that it's her life's work. And so I just loved that. I loved that she was building a super strong culture around the literary world based in Austin, Texas. I felt like she could build one of the most important companies based there. And so that combination of those three things were the reason I got so excited to make the investment.
And I also love that that's in Austin and not in Silicon Valley or the Northeast. And I say that as the founder of a company in Nashville, Tennessee, obviously. But of course, my goal is for people to eventually refer to Austin as, sort of the second Nashville. I don't know if you know this, but too often people refer to Nashville as like the next to Austin. And I think that's conventional wisdom. It's just going to be backwards sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's my expectation and goal. No flies on Austin, though. I love that they're weird. So in the questionnaire that I sent you before we came on air, there's a question there where it says side preference. Doesn't provide any other detail, and your two options are left or right, and you said left. Do you know why you said left?
Yeah, I said left instinctively because I've actually been ambidextrous since I was a kid, and but I ended up playing a lot of sports with the left foot or the left hand. So in cricket, I bat and bowl with the left hand. In soccer, football
works.
Kick with the left foot, played on the left side, left back, left midfield, and so my instinctive answer was left.
I love it. So coming back to the investor side of things. You've recently left Shasta because you're thinking about what the next big thing is for Nikhil. And I think it's unbelievably convenient and quite a coincidence that next big thing, or is it next big thing or next best thing?
Next big thing.
Did I get a next big thing? That's what I thought. I thought I had it right there. I'm getting old. I just love that the acronym lines up as NBT for you. I'm sure that was completely random and just by chance. But what has driven this next stage of career for you?
Yeah, I first of all have my parents to thank for bolting Basu and Trivedi together as my surname. So I have a 2-word last name, which confuses a lot of people, but it's always made my name look distinctive, and it's given me the initials NBT. What drove this for me is I feel really lucky that I've gotten to learn the ropes of investing at 2 great firms, at Insight and at Shasta. But I want to do it, in my own way moving forward. And I just realized the venture business is changing, and I've talked about some of the changes through Next Big Thing and some of the pieces that I've written. The most important thing about the work that we do in venture firms is, our partnerships are groups of people, and I want to work with people who I'm aligned with on principles and values, who I want to work with for the next 15, 20 plus years. and it's hard to get those dynamics, right in a firm. And I just felt like I'd learned a lot from being inside of two different firms to try to do it in a better way moving forward. And so, I was excited to start to invest on my own, which is what I've been doing for the last couple of months. I was excited to just get to write and focus more on that, and to go back to an entrepreneurial mindset, which, as I've tried to describe during this conversation, I've had now for a while. And so I think those are some of the themes that you'll see from me moving forward.
That's interesting, especially in terms of the entrepreneurial mindset. And I know other entrepreneurs get this, but I'm not sure there's anything harder than starting your own thing. And I don't really care what kind of business it is. And so for those watching, even though you've been on the other side of the table as a professional investor, starting your own fund is no different than, starting an Alto IRA. You're starting from a blank piece of paper. You've got to define your mission and goals, and you've got to recruit folks who want to join you on that journey and believe in that same mission and goal. And then, of course, you need investors to believe in what you're doing. So those are the same challenges and, of course, opportunities that any entrepreneur faces. And so congratulations on taking that step. It's it requires a leap of faith, so to speak. So that's good luck on that front.
The other thing I would say is, a lot of people have come to me for career advice over the last, many years. How do I get into venture capital? What should I do after I graduate from college, etc. And I've always said to folks, you're going to be on a linear path unless you take risk. And it's risk that sets you up to be on a potentially exponential path. And one thing you learn when you study mathematics, and certainly when you study entrepreneurship and sort of venture capital and company building in our world, is there's a huge difference between a linear path and an exponential path when you look out 20 years, right? There's a compounding effect on the exponential curve that just isn't there on the linear one. And so some of this for me was, I've got to practice what I preach at some point, and I've got to take some risk. And I think, taking the risk has that chance to put me on a more exponential path. And so those are some of the other things that factored into my mentality.
Well, I think that's super insightful and helpful to understand. And so I'm wondering, because as you have already said, you started to publish about this period for you and this transition period and the next big thing. You also write about every kind of investment decision. And you're thinking along the way, along that path to either get to a yes or a no. Did you write one for yourself and for whatever comes next? And is that what you just told us?
Yeah, I did. I mean, in March, as I was thinking through, leaving Shasta, what I should do, it was also, by the way, a crazy time to be thinking about all this because the pandemic was just beginning. And so I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into, and it certainly tested my mettle. But I did write a bunch about the venture industry back then. And a bunch of that writing has now turned into essays on Next Big Thing. The one about agglomerators versus specialists, how the industry is bifurcated, the piece about the rise of the solo capitalists, founder investor fit. Those were all things that I was thinking about in March and that I started to write about. And a part of that writing was to test my own conviction in, do I believe in this change, and do I believe that there's a path for me to go do something different here? and sort of change the industry myself. And so, yes, I did.
No, it's important that you did. And so, you know, a lot of the listeners are thinking about how to make alternative investments themselves. And clearly, you've had a hypothesis for some time now around subscriptions, and as you look at these potential opportunities, are there 3 to 5 things that you're analyzing or thinking about that someone else may be able to say as part of their own diligence process? You know what, I should be thinking about these things too when I try to decide whether or not I really want to make an investment?
Yeah, I mean, the 3 things that I pointed out about the literati investment are, roughly speaking, the 3 criteria I have for most investments that I make. The first is about the product market fit. You know, I struggle to invest when I can't see the product, when I can't play around with it, when I can't use it. And so I'm just not, a pre-seed idea stage investor right now. Maybe I'll become one over time. Who knows? Maybe my preferences will change. But for now, I like to invest once there's already a product. And so the first thing that I analyze is the product. Is there any early signs of product market fit? Is gauging your customers absolutely love this thing already. The second thing I analyze is that potential for a decades-long customer relationship, and so that does fit very well with a subscription model often. But let's pick on Alto IRA because we're having this conversation.
Yep.
I think one thing that's really exciting about Alto is it absolutely has the potential for a decades-long customer relationship. I mean, I'm a customer now. I think I pay you $25 a month or something. And I don't think I'll ever not be a customer because I've now made a bunch of investments out of my Alto IRA. I think you have me as a customer for life. And the really special businesses have that characteristic, right? If you think about the giant tech companies, you are a customer for life with them. And so that's the second thing that I look for. And it's sometimes hard to gauge that, but actually sometimes it's pretty easy to see the path to you using a product or a business using a product forever and ever. And then the final piece is all about the founders and the team. And so I have a number of internal heuristics for analyzing the team. Is this a founder who's on a mission that is their life's work? As I referenced before with Jess at Literati, I felt that way. And more importantly, she felt that way. Is this a founder who's just going to be a magnet for talent? Are they prioritizing the right things? Are they able to break through and around every wall and obstacle that's going to, impede their way? I ask a lot of questions to myself about the team and try to ask the team questions that give me answers on those questions for myself, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think that's one of the most challenging parts of doing what you do, which is the assessment of the founder and the team, because it requires a certain level of EQ. And I don't know. I'm sure there's someone who understands psychology better than I do who could opine, but EQ to me feels like something you kind of have an instinct for, or you don't. I'm not sure it's something that's learned. And so, it's very interesting to hear you say that, because that's an intangible, right? That you can't. It's hard to score from purely objective measures. So that's a tough one.
I think it's the hard part of this business for sure.
So you listed on this questionnaire that your grandmother was your greatest influence. I want to know more about your grandmother, and starting with what's her name, or what was her name?
Yeah, her name was Aparna Basu. She's my maternal grandmother, and actually all 4 of my grandparents have been a huge influence, but you asked me to pick one grandparent, and so I picked, or one person, and so I picked my maternal grandmother. And She passed away a year and a half ago, actually right before my wedding. But she was, she actually spent a lot of time living with us, especially when we lived in England. I've been to India every year of my life, and I've basically spent every winter time, so the Christmas, New Year's period in India with my grandparents. And so, the main thing that she impressed on me is she had this incredible love of life and love of learning. And she was incredibly smart and talented. She became head of the history department of Delhi University. She was a phenomenal academic in her own right, in particular about women's history. But she had a way with people. I mean, would treat everyone she interacted with so well. Whether it was the janitor at the museum she was the chairperson of, who came to her memorial service and was incredibly emotional that she had passed away, to dignitaries of India and Nobel Prize winners who sent us messages about how sad they were she had passed. She just had an insanely sort of beloved personality, and those are things that I aspire to have, hopefully one day as well. And so I wrote up some reflections and actually a letter that she had sent me in a Medium post, that if folks want to check it out, they can. But she was a huge inspiration on my life.
She sounds like an incredible woman. And I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. You did win the Spirit of Princeton Award. It looks like as a senior. I think it rubbed off maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, she was once in a lifetime, once in a generation person. And actually, one of my she got to come. Both my maternal grandparents came to my graduation from college, and that will always be a really special memory. That they were there for that. She actually, just one more story about her before I forget. She was her father was India's ambassador to the U.S., and so she actually came to the U.S. as a teenager as well, because they moved to Washington, D.C., and she actually went to Princeton's campus to invite personally Albert Einstein to speak at the Indian embassy. Back when she was probably about 20 years old. And so the only essay that I wrote about her in my college essays was a specific essay for Princeton. And so even in just that, in the fact that I ended up going there, like there's something there for me that, felt like it was maybe meant to be, related to my grandmother. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that because it just came to mind.
No, I think it's an absolutely wonderful story, and you can tell by the light in your eyes. So that's pretty cool. Your favorite city is London. At least that's what you said on the questionnaire. Is it because of the Indian food or why?
The Indian food's amazing there for sure.
It is.
I think I absolutely love San Francisco. I love living here. There's something for me nostalgic, kind of romantic about the UK, given I was born there and grew up there until I moved here. And the thing about London that is amazing is it's just such a diverse city. I mean, you have people from everywhere in the world in that city, and it's still, when I go there, it feels like it's still the center of the world, sort of the center of the map. And I think it is in my head as well. And so that's why it holds a special place in my heart too. And I just love visiting there.
Yeah, I think San Francisco is an amazing city, and I lived there as well for 5 years. But I think the only thing in our country that compares to London is New York.
Yeah.
In terms of just absolute diversity and being able to hear 10 languages within 3 blocks and riding an elevator, an escalator, or whatever it may be. And of course, the food options are just tremendous in both places. So how big a game changer was it for you when NBC struck its deal with the Premier League?
It was a pretty big deal. I mean, I remember when I first moved to the US, I really struggled to watch any Premier League football, Champions League football as well, and now it's so easy. And so my Saturday mornings are super simple in the NBC app on Apple TV.
So I'm curious because, you know, I live in a central time zone, so we get the Eastern times just an hour earlier. Are they delaying for you all, or are they playing live?
No, they're playing live. So a lot of the matches are 7 a.m. Pacific, because at 3 p.m. in the UK. And then unfortunately, some of them are 4:30 a.m. here because it's the 12:30 p.m. match over there. But then there's always one at 9:30 a.m. here, 5:30 p.m. there.
Right. Okay. Well, it works out. Plus, well, I get. So actually, that was just an interesting. You don't have do you have a TV at home? Do you have a direct TV or cable subscription? I was just picking up on the Apple TV statement there.
No, we're cord cutters. We don't have, except for an internet subscription. We don't have a cable subscription. We also subscribe to a number of individual,
of course,
packages. Yeah.
So have you done the math? I imagine you have.
I've actually not. It's embarrassing to say I haven't properly done the math, but there's just a certain set of things that my wife and I do want to watch and just do, and so I think we do a good job of having the must-haves.
Okay.
That we subscribe to, but
yeah. So are there some favorite kind of binge watching that goes on in the household?
Oof. Right now, we're not binging anything. We did watch all of The Wire during shelter in place, and it's something I've always wanted to watch because everyone talks about The Wire as one of the greatest TV shows of all time, and we finally did it, and it was amazing. It actually, I tried to watch it before, and I didn't quite pull it off, and we did it, and I'm so glad that we did, and particularly during this moment in time for our country. Watching The Wire and it's such a real look at a city in this country, in its case, Baltimore. I found it fascinating and loved so many of the characters in it too.
There are a ton of great characters in The Wire. We're sort of leading up to this election right now. We're watching The Newsroom, which is another Aaron. I love Aaron Sorkin, and so for those who don't know, Newsroom, it's kind of taking place almost in real time around 2010, 2012. And it's amazing the conversations that were happening then. And if you think about the conversations that are happening today, and, it adds some perspective to the dialogue, I think. Anyway, I think he's one of the great writers of our time, and highly recommend The Newsroom for folks. So I asked you who taught you about finances, and you say probably your dad. Yeah.
My dad is the one in the family who, he's incredibly, first of all, he knows a lot about a lot of things. And so I've always been blown away by his level of general knowledge. You kind of ask him about anything and he'll have an answer for you. And so I grew up with a father like that. But he does all the taxes, like he sort of takes care of the taxes and the bills and all these things, the way my parents divide up their work. And so, he is the one who led me to open a retirement account when I got my first paycheck. This is back in high school. I think when I was 18. And so that's when I first opened a Roth IRA. And that's why I answered the question that I think he's taught me more than anyone about finance, and just sort of personal finances.
Thank you for sharing that. And so I actually want to come back to football for an ending. So Messi sort of teases all of us, right, with a potential move to the Premier League, which is where I think he should be at this point. And it would be a new challenge for him, and it would be exceptional to watch for everybody else in the world. But he stays put. Was that disappointing to you?
Slightly, although had he gone to Man City, I mean, that would have been brutal. I did see, I saw some tweets, if Messi moves to Man City, man, you need to get Ronaldo again. Now, that would have been fun. That would have been really fun. But
that would have been cool.
He's exceptionally talented. It would have been really fun to have him in the Premier League. But, we've got a fun league right now. It's going to be a great season.
I agree. I think it'll be an exceptional season. So, Nikhil, thank you so much for spending time with us and taking the time to talk to us about your life and your investment philosophy. I hope everyone's listening was able to take away one or two or even three things that can help them in their own investing activity. And of course, go check out the next big thing and read what Nikhil's writing, because one, he's a really good writer, and two, it's super sharp. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. This has been really fun, and thanks for all the fun questions and different questions.
My pleasure.
The Altogether Show is brought to you by Alto IRA. Alto knows that public markets offer insufficient diversification of retirement accounts. That's why Alto developed a streamlined platform to make it easy and cost-effective for anyone to invest their tax-advantaged retirement savings in alternatives. Assets like real estate, venture capital, and crypto that are outside of the public markets and available through Alto's 21 platform partners. To learn more, visit altoira.com.